I'm using writecodeonline.com to write JavaScript inside here. Variables and console.log. Variable is a container. You can pretty much store anything in a variable, from numbers to strings. Strings are text, words, anything, to entire functions. The main reason why we use variables is to store some form of data and be able to read it later. So for example, if we want to how we define variables is, if we want to define a variable named sumVar, then we would write variable var sumVar equals 4. That'll store that data inside that variable. The semicolon ends a statement, and then to print out the value of the variable, we can use console.log. And what this does is it just prints out the contents. Whatever's in between, whatever you put in between the parentheses, it's going to print it out to the JavaScript console, which I have down here on Chrome. On Chrome on a Mac, it's Command Option J, and I'll bring up this JavaScript console. So if I run this code, it'll print out 4, the value of the variable we just defined. If we have two separate variables, let's put it 5, and then we wanted to print out on the same line 4, 5 on the console, we would use a plus sign inside the console.log. We would say sumVar and then plus, and to put a comma in between them, we would use single quotes or double quotes and just a comma. Whatever's inside these single quotes is a string. And when you put up, when you have a plus sign, if you have two different types of variables to the left or to the right, which in this case we have sumVar, which is a number, and a comma, which is a string, then it's going to concatenate the two values. And if we put another plus sign and then we write another var, which is going to be 5, then when we run this code, it's going to print out 4, 5. In the case of if both variables are numbers, like say we have var something equals 3, 2, and var something else equals 5, and then we log 2 plus 5, something plus something else. Since the variable on the left side of the plus sign is a number and the variable on the right side of the plus sign is also a number, then it's just automatically not going to concatenate the two values. It's going to sum them mathematically. So when we log this, we will get 7. And there's 7. Arrays. An array is another type of container. It can store sets of data or a lot of different types of data. For example, we could store the numbers 4, 5, and 6 inside one array and then return each of those values individually whenever we wanted to. To define an empty array named myArray, we would write var space myArray equals open bracket, close bracket. And the open bracket and the close bracket, it says that the variable is of type of an object. So if we put variable myArray equals open bracket, close bracket, and then we log to the console type of myArray, code is going to should output an object. So this type of object, and it belongs to an array because we'll get into that later, the methods that it brings. If we have a variable like before, sum var equals 3, and then we log type of sum var, we're going to get out a number when we run this code instead of type number. To store values inside the array, let's say we wanted to store 4, 5, and 6, we could do it one of several ways, well, one of two ways I'll show you. We could either say var myArray is an empty array, and then on the next lines myArray dot push 4, and then or again do myArray dot push 5, and then myArray push 6. Then when we log myArray, we're going to get values 4, 5, and 6 inside the brackets. We could do the same thing by just putting var myArray and then inside the brackets 4, 5, 6. So whatever values you want to store inside the array separated by commas inside the brackets. And then when we log myArray, it's going to give us the same results, 4, 5, and 6. To return the values, you can think of these things inside here, the values inside the array, as you can store variables in there too. So if we have an empty array, and then we say var sum var equals 3, another var equals 5, and then myArray dot push sum var, myArray dot push another var, and then when we log myArray, it's going to give us 3, 5. And then to output just one individual value inside the array, we use the index starting at 0. So this one would be 0, and then the 5 would be 1. To output that to the console, instead of myArray, which is going to dump the entire array, we're going to put the index that we want inside of brackets. If we put bracket 0, we're going to output 3. And if we put output brackets 1, we're going to output 5. Or whatever you want inside of an array. You don't need to store, if you have myArray equals, and you start out with numbers, then wherever you want inside the array, you can just store a random string. And again, strings are defined inside single quotes or double quotes. So you can have hello inside this single quote, or you can define it inside double quotes. And it still works, everything. For loops. For loops is one of the main type of loops that we can use in programming. You define a starting point, an end point, or rather a condition to keep the loop running, and then a set of commands that would execute as long as that condition is true. So for example, you could put for variable I equals 0, which would be the starting point. We're defining a new variable I. This is exactly the same thing as if you're putting var I equals 0 on a one line. And then the following space is the condition. So if we put if I is less than 5, then while I is less than 5, the statements that are going to be inside the commands of this for loop are going to keep on executing. And then the last statement is, for the most part, whether or not we want I to decrease in value, which is I minus minus. That's the same thing as writing I equals I minus 1, or I plus plus, which is the same thing as writing I equals I plus 1. So again, variable I equals 0 is just defining a variable, setting it to 0, which is the starting point. This is the condition that while this is true, the statements will keep iterating, they will keep executing. And then this last statement, I plus plus, in this case, is that after every iteration, I is going to increment by 1 in this case. So the open curly bracket here is the start of the commands that are going to execute every iteration inside this for loop. And then the closing curly bracket at the end is the end of the commands that will execute. So just for example, I'm just going to log hello to the console, and then when we run this code, we'll see that it executes. We get 5 times hello. To show you that how I works, that this var I equals 0, this is only going to be running once. As soon as you run this for loop, this only gets executed one time. After that, then whatever you put at the end, I++, this is going to be executed after every iteration. So if we write console.log hello plus I, and again in this case, since the left side of the plus sign is a string and the right side of the plus sign is a number, it's going to concatenate it. So it's going to write hello, a space, and then the value of I per each iteration of the for loop. So when we run this, we'll get hello 0, hello 1, hello 2, hello 3, hello 4. It stops at hello 4 because this condition is no longer true if I is less than 5. Because the next iteration here, it would be hello 5, but then this would not be true. If we put less than or equal to 5, then we run the code again, and then 5 appears down here. So that's basics of how for loops work. Last thing in this video I want to cover is commenting code, and I just did it with this line. If you have 2 front slashes in front of your code, that's gonna mean that everything after those 2 front slashes are gonna be comments, meaning it's not gonna get executed. So for example, if we put var hello equals this, and then we put front slash var something equals that, we try to log hello, we're going to get this. And then if we try to log something, we're going to get an error is not defined. See, something is not defined. So that just means this is not it doesn't get executed by a JavaScript. This is just, if you have some code that needs to be explained or something, this is just basically to talk in between developers or just by yourself. It's a good practice just to comment your code. These front slashes are for single line commenting. If you want to do a multi-line comment, then you open it with a front slash and an asterisk, and then whatever you can write it keeps on commenting everything until you close it with an asterisk and a front slash. So if we run this, it's not going to run anything, but we're not going to get any errors either, just because this code is not going to get executed. It's just notes to the developer.